Have you ever sat quietly in your favorite old armchair, watching the sunset outside the porch, and asked yourself, how much longer will I be strong enough to live a life of true meaning? This isn't a fear of dying. It's the fear of not being strong enough to truly live. With over 30 years of experience working with seniors in the U.S., I've seen countless life stories. Some people at 65 already rely on canes, walking slowly, carefully, yet others at 80 still drive themselves to go fishing, play tennis with their grandkids, and cook dinner every evening. What makes the difference? You might think it's genetics, they eat better, or they're just lucky. All of that is true, but not the whole truth. Today, in this video, I'll share with you something more powerful than genes, supplements, or strict diets. It's a simple daily habit, and you can start today. No fancy equipment, no expense, no special coaching. I'll never forget one of my old patients, Mr. Walter, 78 years old, living in a quiet suburb of Austin, Texas. The day I visited him for a routine checkup, I found him standing under an old oak tree, hands on a wooden fence, doing gentle push-ups against a garden bench. Surprised, I asked, "Do you do this often?" He smiled, his face lit with joy. "Every day. I never skip. And every time I finish, I feel like I've turned the clock back just a little." A simple answer, but one that holds a powerful biological truth. Your body doesn't respond to what you do once with great effort. It responds to what you do every single day. That's why you shouldn't skip this video. Because starting at age 60, our bodies begin to lose muscle mass, a condition called sarcopenia. If left unaddressed, by the time you reach 80, you could lose more than 50% of your muscle compared to your younger years. Sounds scary? Don't worry, there's good news. We can absolutely reverse this condition. No meds, no gyms, no private trainers. Just 7 science-backed habits, proven by researchers from Harvard, Mayo Clinic, and other top medical institutions. These habits have helped thousands of older adults I've worked with. And today, I want to pass them on to you. Because living longer is not the goal, living strong is. When you're strong, you don't just live longer. You live free, with joy, with dignity, and with gratitude. So stay with me in this video. Sometimes just one small change in your daily habit can decide whether you live independently or dependently in your later years. Number 1. Strategic protein intake. The hidden key to rebuilding muscle after 60. In the quiet suburb of Fresno, California, lives Mr. Robert Sean, a 74-year-old retired mathematics teacher who begins each morning not with coffee or television, but with a protein smoothie he prepares himself. Greek yogurt, a scoop of protein powder, some frozen blueberries, and a spoonful of peanut butter. This, he says with a smile, is what keeps me on my feet. At first glance, it seems like a minor morning ritual. But what Robert is doing is something more seniors should be doing, practicing strategic protein intake. And that habit may be the very difference between strength and frailty as we grow older. When we talk about muscle health and old age, most people think of physical exercise. But few realize that the way we eat protein, not just how much, but when we eat it, directly determines how our muscles respond. Scientists call this anabolic resistance, a natural decline in the body's ability to use protein to build or preserve muscle tissue as we age. In younger years, a high-protein meal stimulates muscle protein synthesis effectively. But in our 60s, 70s, and beyond, the body needs a bit more, and it needs it more often. What this means is simple. If you're only consuming protein during dinner, like most older adults, you're missing 2 golden opportunities during breakfast and lunch to preserve your muscle strength. Each missed opportunity is like walking past a fountain when you're thirsty. You may survive, but you're not thriving. Robert used to be one of those people. Always ate my biggest meal at dinner. That's just the way we grew up. Bread and jam in the morning, maybe a sandwich for lunch. But it wasn't working anymore. My legs got weaker, and even going up the stairs became a chore, he recalls. It wasn't until he consulted a nutrition-focused physician that he realized he wasn't lacking protein. He was just timing it wrong. Studies from institutions like the University of Texas have now shown that when older adults distribute 25 to 30 grams of high-quality protein at each meal, they can increase muscle protein synthesis by up to 25% more than those who consume the same total amount of protein in fewer meals. That 25% isn't just a number. It's the difference between walking confidently or fearing a fall. So what does 25 to 30 grams of protein look like? For breakfast, it could be 2 eggs, a cup of Greek yogurt, and a handful of almonds. For lunch, perhaps a chicken breast sandwich on whole grain bread or a bowl of lentils with brown rice and avocado. And for dinner, the classic grilled fish, steamed vegetables, and a side of quinoa can seal the day. The goal isn't excess, it's consistency and spread. But it's not just about numbers. It's about intentionality. When you begin to view each meal as a chance to nourish and rebuild, you shift your mindset from surviving aging to actively participating in your vitality. This shift alone has helped people like Robert go from struggling to stand up to joining weekly community hikes with people 20 years younger. There's also an emotional lesson here. Many seniors carry an unconscious belief that decline is inevitable, that with age must come weakness, slowness, and eventual dependence. But food, when used wisely, becomes a protest against that narrative. It becomes a daily declaration of dignity. And for those with vegetarian or plant-based preferences, the news is equally promising. Lentils, chickpeas, tofu, tempeh, quinoa, and seeds like hemp or chia, when combined correctly, offer all the essential amino acids needed for muscle repair and growth. You don't need meat to meet your goals. You need mindfulness and variety. I remember a woman named Maria, 81, who visited my clinic with complaints of persistent fatigue and muscle loss. She was active, still gardening every morning, but her meals were irregular. After we talked, she agreed to track her protein intake for a week. What we discovered was telling. She was consuming 70 grams a day, but 50 grams of that came at dinner. We adjusted her routine: eggs and avocado toast in the morning, a lentil salad at lunch, and her usual dinner. Within 2 months, Maria reported more energy, better sleep, and less soreness in her legs. It wasn't magic. It was protein timing. So here's my message to you, wherever you are on your aging journey. You don't need to revolutionize your entire lifestyle overnight. But start by looking at your plate in the morning and asking, where is my protein? Do the same at lunch. Keep a simple journal if needed. You'll be surprised how small shifts can deliver big changes. In the end, it's not just about food. It's about honoring your body's evolving needs. It's about choosing strength over surrender. About learning, even in your 70s or 80s, that your body still listens. And when you feed it with care, it responds with grace. Part 2. The muscle vitamin. How vitamin D becomes your silent ally after 60. The sun was rising slowly over the Arizona desert when I met James Langley, a retired truck mechanic in his late 70s. He stood in his front yard barefoot, with his palms turned gently upward, soaking in the morning sun. "This is my ritual," he said, eyes half closed. 15 minutes a day, no more, no less. It's the cheapest prescription I've ever received, and it works. James had never been someone to fuss over supplements or vitamins. But after a nasty fall at age 72 that fractured his wrist and bruised his confidence, his doctor ran a simple test, one that most people never even think to ask for. His vitamin D levels were critically low. You see, for decades, vitamin D was primarily associated with bone health, strong teeth, solid skeletons, that sort of thing. But now, science has made something abundantly clear. Vitamin D plays a far deeper role, especially when it comes to muscle strength, coordination, and fall prevention. It's no longer just the bone vitamin. Among researchers and geriatricians, it's increasingly called the muscle vitamin, and the evidence is overwhelming. Studies from institutions like Harvard Medical School and the Mayo Clinic reveal that seniors who maintain optimal vitamin D levels, typically above 40 nanograms per milliliter, exhibit 25% greater muscle strength, better balance, and faster reaction times than those with deficiencies. These aren't minor benefits. They are the difference between catching yourself when you trip and ending up in the emergency room with a hip fracture. What's more startling is that over 80% of seniors in the United States are deficient in vitamin D. Not mildly deficient, severely. Why? The reasons are many. As we age, our skin loses its efficiency to produce vitamin D from sunlight by as much as 50%. Many seniors also avoid the sun out of fear of skin cancer or simply because they spend more time indoors. Combine that with low intake from diet, and you've got a silent epidemic. James had never considered this before his fall. Nobody told me about vitamin D, he said. But once I started supplementing and pairing it with that little bit of sun each day, I felt a difference. Not just in my body, but in my energy, my sleep, even my mood. Vitamin D receptors are found directly inside muscle cells. When those receptors are activated, they stimulate pathways responsible for building and repairing muscle tissue. It's like unlocking a door to restoration that had been shut for years. And when that door opens, everything else improves too, from coordination to mobility to confidence in every step. But sunlight alone is often not enough. Most older adults need to supplement, and not just a little. The typical recommendation of 600 IU per day is woefully inadequate. Research shows that 2,000 to 4,000 IU per day is necessary to raise and maintain optimal levels in seniors, depending on body weight, baseline levels, and lifestyle. And even that should be guided by a simple blood test that your doctor can order, a 25-OH-D test, to see exactly where you stand. Still, there's a nuance here that's too important to ignore. Vitamin D does not work alone. It partners with vitamin K2, a lesser-known nutrient that ensures calcium is directed to your bones, not your arteries. Without adequate K2, high doses of vitamin D can inadvertently increase your risk of arterial calcification, something we certainly don't want. K2 is found abundantly in fermented foods like natto, sauerkraut, cheese, and pasture-raised animal products. If your diet is low in these, a supplement containing both vitamin D3 and K2 is a smart strategy. There's also food. While diet alone usually can't provide sufficient vitamin D, it still plays a helpful role. Fatty fish like salmon, sardines, and mackerel, along with egg yolks and fortified dairy, offer small but valuable amounts. Pairing these with regular sun exposure and supplementation can help create a stable foundation for strength and resilience. One of my patients, Eleanor, an 80-year-old widow from Seattle, used to struggle with walking to her mailbox. Her balance was shaky, and her muscles felt like wet spaghetti, as she described them. We tested her vitamin D levels. The result, 14 nanograms per milliliter. That's not just low, that's dangerously low. We got her on 4,000 IU daily, added K2, encouraged safe morning sun walks, and included salmon and eggs in her weekly diet. 6 months later, her levels were optimal. But more importantly, she could walk confidently without her cane. When I walk now, she told me, I feel like my legs belong to me again. That's what vitamin D does. It reconnects you with the strength you thought was lost. It doesn't work overnight. It doesn't come with flashy promises. But it builds quietly and steadily, like the slow sunrise over the horizon. So if you're over 60 or caring for someone who is, don't overlook this invisible ally. Ask your doctor for that blood test. Make sunlight a daily ritual. Be intentional about your supplementation. And most of all, remember this. Aging doesn't mean fading. It means refining. And with the right support, your strength can surprise you. Because just like James in Arizona and Eleanor in Seattle, your best days don't have to be behind you. Sometimes they're just waiting for the right chemistry. Part 3. The Hidden Fire. How chronic inflammation quietly erodes your strength after 60. The first time I met Mrs. Clarice Johnson, she was sitting on a park bench in Sacramento, slowly massaging her knees with both hands. 83 years old, hair tied back in a soft bun, wearing her late husband's faded navy cardigan. Doctor, she said without even looking up, I feel like I'm rusting from the inside out. And in a way, she was right. Clarice had no major diseases, no scary diagnoses, no dramatic trauma. Her blood pressure was controlled, her cholesterol reasonable, her daily walks consistent. Yet despite her healthy habits, she struggled with constant fatigue, aching joints, and a nagging stiffness that seemed to spread deeper by the month. What Clarice was experiencing wasn't just aging. It was a phenomenon known as inflammaging, a quiet, slow-burning inflammation that accumulates as we age and silently chips away at our muscles, our energy, and even our will to move. For many seniors, inflammation is the thief that robs them in silence. It doesn't shout. It doesn't always show up in scans. But it works from within, interfering with everything the body tries to do right, including building or even maintaining muscle tissue. Scientific studies, like the one conducted at Tufts University, have shown that older adults with elevated inflammatory markers lose muscle mass 3 times faster than those with lower levels, even if their diets and exercise routines are similar. That means you could be doing everything right, but if inflammation is running in the background, your strength may still slip away. This is why some 85-year-olds still walk briskly to the farmer's market, while others feel winded just standing from a chair. It's not just willpower. It's not just luck. It's inflammation and how well it's being managed. Now, here's the good news. This fire can be cooled, and not with extreme diets or expensive pills, but with daily, practical habits that turn down the internal heat and allow your body to heal and rebuild. The first cornerstone is sleep, often the most underestimated medicine of all. Without 7 to 8 hours of deep, uninterrupted sleep, your body can't regulate the cytokines that drive inflammation. In fact, studies show that just a few nights of poor sleep can increase inflammatory markers by 40%. Clarice, for instance, was waking up every few hours, restless, anxious, her mind rehearsing old worries. We began working on her sleep environment, darkening the room, adjusting her caffeine intake, and creating a gentle nighttime wind-down ritual. Within weeks, she wasn't just sleeping better. She was walking farther, more confidently. Then there's the gut. Yes, your digestive system is your second immune system. The bacteria that live there, your gut microbiome, influence everything from inflammation to mental clarity. Research from the University of California found that when older adults eat a more diverse, fiber-rich diet, with 30 or more different plants per week, their inflammation drops dramatically. We added lentils to Clarice's soups, berries to her breakfast, and a few spoons of sauerkraut next to her lunch. These weren't exotic changes. They were simple, comforting, and powerful. She even chuckled when I introduced her to kefir. I used to think this was a fancy milkshake, she said. Turns out it's the one drink my joints actually like. But we didn't stop at food. We took a long, honest look at her movement patterns. Yes, exercise helps. But too much, or the wrong kind, can backfire after 60, actually increasing inflammation instead of reducing it. That's why the smartest seniors don't spend hours pounding the treadmill. They move moderately, consistently, and with purpose. Clarice swapped out her old aerobic DVDs for daily 30-minute walks, peppered with light resistance training and gentle yoga. Once a week, she danced with her granddaughter in the living room. She said it felt silly at first, but my body laughed with me, she told me. And that's how I knew it was working. The final pillar, and perhaps the most elegant of them all, lies in anti-inflammatory nutrients. These aren't fads. They're the gold standard of healthy aging. Omega-3 fatty acids, found in fatty fish like salmon or taken through high-quality supplements, lower inflammation system-wide. 2 to 3 grams per day can reduce joint pain, improve cognition, and yes, preserve muscle strength. Clarice began eating wild sardines on rye toast twice a week. My friends wrinkle their noses, she said, but I call it my strength sandwich. Turmeric, the golden spice of India, holds a compound called curcumin, one of nature's most potent anti-inflammatories. Paired with black pepper, which increases its absorption, curcumin fights oxidative stress and supports muscle repair. Clarice took it as a supplement, but also stirred it into her tea with honey and lemon. It tastes like sunshine, she said, smiling. Then there's polyphenol, found in berries, green tea, dark chocolate, and extra virgin olive oil. These tiny compounds do big things like scavenging free radicals that damage tissues. When Clarice made the switch from canola oil to olive oil, Her joints thanked her. "I don't creak as much," she joked, "and I feel like I'm cooking in Italy." We also ran a blood test to check her high-sensitivity C-reactive protein, HSCRP, a marker for inflammation. When we started, hers was 4.2 milligrams per liter on the high end. After 3 months of gentle lifestyle changes, it dropped below 1.0. She didn't just feel better. She was better, inside and out. And here's the truth. Managing inflammation isn't about perfection. It's about consistency. It's not about punishing your body. It's about listening to it, caring for it, and feeding it what it truly needs to thrive. When you quiet the fire within, something beautiful happens. Your muscles come back to life. You regain your steadiness. Your posture improves. You breathe a little deeper, laugh a little louder, and move a little freer. So the next time you feel tired without explanation, or sore in places that never used to complain, or just slower than you remember being, ask yourself, is there inflammation here? Could your fatigue be a whisper from within, asking for care? And like Clarice in Sacramento, maybe it's time to sit in the morning sun, eat some berries, laugh with someone you love, and give your body what it's been silently craving for years, peace from the inside out. Because strength isn't just a matter of muscle. It's a matter of fire and how well you've learned to tame it. Part 4. The Silent Supporters. How key micronutrients restore muscle strength after 60. Mr. Joseph Morales from Santa Fe was a quiet man, retired librarian, former jazz pianist, and a gentle soul with a voice that always sounded like a soft radio hum from another era. When he walked into my office for the first time, he said something I'll never forget. "Doc, I've done the walks. I've lifted the weights. I've eaten the greens. But I still feel like my body's fading, like I'm watching it from the back row." It wasn't until we ran his micronutrient panel that I saw what was really happening. Joseph wasn't missing effort. He was missing support. His body, despite all his good habits, was running low on essential vitamins and minerals. And without those, even the best workouts and the cleanest diets can fail to deliver strength. You see, macronutrients like protein, carbs, and fats are like the bricks of your body. But micronutrients, vitamins, minerals, and trace elements are like the builders. Without them, nothing gets absorbed, repaired, or strengthened properly. Let's begin with one of the most underestimated ones, magnesium. This mineral powers over 300 enzymatic reactions in the body, many of which involve muscle contraction, energy metabolism, and nerve function. Unfortunately, over 70% of adults over 60 are deficient, and the symptoms don't always scream. They whisper: subtle fatigue, restless sleep, cramps at night, weak grip, foggy thinking. Joseph had many of these signs, and when we added magnesium-rich foods like spinach, almonds, pumpkin seeds, and dark chocolate to his daily meals, alongside a gentle supplement of magnesium glycinate, things began to shift. He described it best: "I feel like I've gone from black and white to color." Another crucial player, creatine. Yes, the word may conjure up images of bodybuilders and protein powders, but in truth, creatine is one of the most studied and safe supplements for older adults. Research from McMaster University has shown that 3 to 5 grams per day can help seniors gain muscle mass, improve strength, and even boost cognitive performance. Joseph had been lifting light weights for months with limited progress. After adding creatine, his progress accelerated. "I'm playing piano with more energy," he said, "and I don't need to sit down halfway through vacuuming the house anymore." It wasn't a miracle. It was biochemistry working the way it's supposed to. Now let's talk about vitamin B12, specifically the methylated form known as methylcobalamin. After 60, our stomach acid declines, making it harder to absorb B12 from food. Add to that the fact that many seniors take metformin for diabetes or PPIs for acid reflux, both of which deplete B12, and we've got a silent epidemic. B12 deficiency leads to nerve damage, muscle weakness, and even balance problems that can raise the risk of falls. Joseph's blood test showed a B12 level just below the optimal range, and he recalled feeling like my feet don't talk to my brain the way they used to. After supplementing with 1,000 micrograms of methylcobalamin daily for 2 months, his gait improved. His steps felt sure. "I'm walking like I used to," he told me one afternoon at the cafe across the street. "Like I trust the ground again." Let's not forget the trace minerals, the smallest nutrients with the biggest ripple effects. Zinc, selenium, and chromium are often left out of conversations about aging, but they boost insulin sensitivity, regulate protein synthesis, and reduce oxidative stress. In a 5-year longitudinal study conducted by Tufts University, older adults with optimal levels of these trace minerals retained 22% more muscle mass than those with deficiencies. Joseph began eating Brazil nuts, rich in selenium, pumpkin seeds, loaded with zinc, and broccoli and oats, sources of chromium. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't trendy, but it worked. And that's the lesson. There's no magic bullet for aging strong, but there's a symphony of small, powerful supports that, when harmonized, allow the body to do what it already knows how to do: rebuild itself. Unfortunately, many seniors never test their nutrient levels. They take generic multivitamins that provide too little of what they need and too much of what they don't. That's why individuals like Joseph and so many other silent superagers go one step further. They tailor their intake based on micronutrient testing, listening to the whispers of their body before they become cries. Today, Joseph still plays piano, not in a jazz club, but in the community center where he volunteers to lead weekly music sessions for other seniors. And every time I visit him, I notice something in his hands: the steadiness, the warmth, the quiet strength of someone who chose not to fade. So if you're doing all the right things and still feeling like your strength is slipping, maybe it's not about doing more. Maybe it's about doing smarter. Maybe what your body needs isn't louder effort, but deeper nourishment. Start by asking, what's missing beneath the surface? Because sometimes the key to moving forward is found in what we can't see until we look closer. Part 6, the brain-muscle connection. How to protect the bridge that moves you. It was on a cool spring afternoon in Portland when I met Mrs. Dolores Hanley. She was 78, a former English teacher, mother of 3, and an avid crossword enthusiast. Dolores had always been sharp, the kind of person who could quote Shakespeare without blinking and correct your grammar with a soft smile. But when she came into my office, it wasn't her mind she was concerned about. It was her legs. "I've been dropping things," she said, "and I trip over my own feet sometimes. It's not that I'm weak, it's like the signal from my brain doesn't get there fast enough." And she was right. Her words held more wisdom than she knew. Because what Dolores was describing wasn't just a strength problem. It was a communication breakdown, a neuromuscular disruption. Most people don't realize this, but muscle loss after 60 isn't always about the muscle fibers themselves. In many cases, the first decline happens at the neuromuscular junction, the synapse where a motor nerve connects to a muscle. That junction is like an electrical outlet. It's how the brain tells your body to move. And when it weakens, even the strongest muscles can become unplugged. So what do superagers, those rare individuals who defy muscle loss deep into their 80s and 90s, do to protect this neural bridge? They move differently. They think differently. And they train their brains as much as their biceps. Let's begin with coordinated movement patterns. Dolores had always been a walker. 2 miles every day through her neighborhood, rain or shine. But when we added simple neurocoordination tasks like Tai Chi, light dance routines, and ping-pong drills, her balance improved, her steps steadied, and the brain-to-muscle connection sharpened. Why? Because when you challenge your body to move in complex, timed, and intentional ways, you activate not only muscles but neural circuits. These exercises require the brain to stay online, creating new synapses and preserving old ones. Studies from 2020 published in the Journal of Physiology showed that seniors who practice these coordination-based activities just twice a week preserve 31% more neuromuscular junction integrity than those doing standard workouts. Then there's something most people ignore entirely: vagus nerve activation. You've probably heard of the vagus nerve, the long wandering nerve that connects your brainstem to your heart, lungs, and digestive organs. But did you know it also helps regulate neuromuscular communication? Practicing intentional breathing techniques, such as box breathing, Inhale for 4 seconds. Hold for 4. Exhale for 4. Hold again for 4. Activates the parasympathetic nervous system and strengthens the vagal tone. This simple 5-minute daily ritual can improve neural activation of muscles by up to 15%, especially in older adults. When Dolores added breathing to her morning routine, she told me something beautiful. It's like I'm not just walking now. I'm walking with myself. Nutrition, too, plays a role. Alpha-lipoic acid and acetyl-L-carnitine are compounds that help shield the neuromuscular junction from oxidative damage. Meanwhile, specific forms of vitamin B1, like benfotiamine or sulbutamine, can enhance the production of acetylcholine, the neurotransmitter most responsible for muscle activation. Incorporating eggs, organ meats, green vegetables, and fortified grains can provide natural sources of these nutrients. For Dolores, we added a simple supplement stack tailored to her blood work, and within 2 months, she described her grip as more responsive, her legs as awake again. But perhaps the most fascinating finding of all comes from the intersection of cognition and movement. A study from Columbia University discovered that older adults who engaged in mentally stimulating tasks, puzzles, learning new languages, strategy games, retained superior muscle control compared to those who didn't. Why? Because the mind-muscle connection is real. Every time you challenge your brain with new ideas, your cortical map stays fresh, and that sharpness translates into your body. So Dolores returned to an old hobby she had long forgotten, playing piano. At first, it was shaky. Her fingers trembled. But with daily practice, something extraordinary happened. Her playing improved, and so did her balance, her coordination, her typing, even her posture. It's like the music is putting the pieces of me back together, she said one day, with a tear and a smile. And that's the message. Your body doesn't just grow old. It listens. It listens to how you think, how you move, how you challenge yourself, and how you rest. The neuromuscular bridge that connects your inner world to your outer movement is still very much alive. And it can be strengthened, preserved, even rebuilt. But it takes more than lifting weights. It takes intention, precision, a willingness to play, to breathe, to try new things, to learn again. Just like Dolores. Now, when I see her, she no longer talks about fear. She talks about the walks she's planning through her community garden, the new songs she's learning, and the way her steps feel lighter. So if you're feeling disconnected, if your strength is there, but your confidence isn't, consider this. Maybe your body doesn't need to be stronger. Maybe your connection just needs to be clearer. And that clarity? It starts inside your mind. Part 7. The mindset that moves muscles. Rewriting the script of aging. It was a rainy afternoon in Seattle when I first met Mr. Harold Kim. At 81, Harold wasn't what you'd call frail, not outwardly at least. He stood tall, his handshake was firm, and he still drove himself to the clinic. But there was something in his eyes, a quiet resignation. I used to lift my grandkids, he said, chuckling softly. Now I feel like I'm the one who needs lifting. But then he leaned forward, almost whispering, I don't think it's my legs that are the problem. I think I've stopped believing they can still get stronger. Harold had just hit on something deeply profound, something I've seen in dozens of patients over the years. And it's this. Before the body weakens, the belief in strength often fades first. This belief, this silent, internal narrative, plays an enormous role in how we age. Because when we think of strength as something that belongs to youth, something we once had and lost, it changes how we move through the world. It changes how we eat, how we rest, how we show up for ourselves. But here's what science, and thousands of real-life examples, tell us. The body follows the story we tell it. In one remarkable study from Yale University, researchers found that older adults who held positive beliefs about aging lived 7.5 years longer on average than those who didn't, even when controlling for health and lifestyle factors. That's a bigger boost than stopping smoking. But it's more than longevity. Participants with positive aging beliefs showed greater physical mobility, faster recovery after illness, and stronger muscle performance. Why? Because mindset shapes behavior, and behavior shapes outcomes. When you believe you're too old to improve, you're less likely to push yourself, less likely to try new habits, less likely to challenge your limits. And slowly, not because of age, but because of belief, your world gets smaller. Your movements shrink. Your resilience fades. Harold had done what so many do. He'd unknowingly started scripting his decline. And it was time to change that story. So we began with a daily practice, the strength statement. Each morning, before his walk, Harold would stand in front of a mirror, look himself in the eye, and say, "My body is capable. My strength is returning. I'm not done growing." It sounds simple, maybe even silly. But within a few weeks, Harold was walking faster. He started carrying his own groceries again. His grandkids noticed, and so did his posture. Because here's the truth. Affirmations work best when they're paired with action. The more Harold moved, the more his brain believed him. And the more he believed, the more he moved. And this isn't just psychological fluff. It's deeply rooted in biology. Your thoughts affect your hormones. Optimistic beliefs reduce cortisol, increase dopamine, and support better sleep, all of which are essential for muscle repair and growth. A hopeful mindset literally primes the body for recovery and adaptation. In contrast, fear-based thinking, like "I'm too old for this," or "I'll probably fall," tightens muscles, increases inflammation, and reduces balance and coordination. You begin to walk defensively, which ironically increases your risk of falling. That's why reframing your thoughts is as crucial as taking your vitamins or doing your stretches. Let me give you another example. Maria Chavez, 76, had survived breast cancer, 2 hip replacements, and the loss of her husband. When she came to one of my group sessions, she said something that silenced the room. "I feel like my life has paused and no one's pressed play again." We started working on one simple question. What do you still want to feel strong for? At first, she hesitated. Then she said, "I want to dance at my granddaughter's wedding. Even just one song." And that became her why. Every exercise, every supplement, every stretch, they all served a purpose beyond survival. They served a vision. Maria printed out a photo of her granddaughter, taped it to her fridge, and began training with intention. One day she came back to class, smiling wide. "I danced," she said, "and I didn't even sit down halfway." That's the power of mindset. Not blind positivity, but purpose-driven effort. So what's the lesson? Your mindset is a muscle. And like any muscle, it must be trained. Here are a few practices I recommend to my older patients. The mirror talk. Every morning, say one sentence that affirms your strength or resilience. Look yourself in the eye. Make it real. Reframe your lows. When a setback hits, instead of "I'm falling apart," try "This is temporary, and I can respond with strength." Write your future self a letter. Describe the version of you 1 year from now. What do they feel like? Move like? Speak like? Post it where you'll see it often. Change your language. Swap "I can't" with "I'm learning to" or "I'm working on." Language shapes expectation. Because every belief you rewrite rewrites your biology. Every time you affirm your ability, you're reinforcing neural pathways that support movement, motivation, and healing. As Harold told me a few months after we started, "I used to think strength was something I lost. Now, I realize it's something I decide to rebuild, one thought, one step, one day at a time." So what story are you telling yourself today? Are you the one whose best years are behind them? Or are you the one just beginning the second act? The script is in your hands. Let's make it one worth living. Part 8. The Power of Recovery. Why rest is where strength is reborn. I once asked an 84-year-old former marathon runner named William Park what his biggest regret was when it came to health and aging. He didn't hesitate. "I thought more pain meant more gain," he said. But the truth is, it wasn't the running that broke me. It was the lack of rest. That conversation has stayed with me through years of working with older adults. Because so often, when we talk about health after 60, we speak of movement, activity, doing more. Rarely do we talk about the space between the doing, the rest, the sleep, the stillness where the real magic happens. Yet, muscle isn't built during exercise. It's built in recovery. Every time you perform a resistance movement, walk a hill, or even climb stairs, you create micro tears in your muscle fibers. That's normal. That's good. But if those tears are never allowed to heal, they compound. Inflammation rises, fatigue lingers, progress plateaus or reverses. As I often tell my patients, exercise is the spark, but recovery is the flame that forges strength. Let me illustrate this through a real story. Helen Tran, 72, had been diligent with her training. 3 days a week of light strength work, daily walks around her neighborhood. And yet, she kept feeling drained. Her balance worsened, her legs felt heavy, and she began to dread her workouts. After a thorough checkup, everything seemed in order. No deficiencies, no injuries. But when we reviewed her sleep, hydration, and rest patterns, the problem became clear. She wasn't allowing her body to rebuild. Her sleep? Broken into 4 to 5 hours at night, with occasional naps. Her hydration? Under a liter of water a day. Her meals? Sometimes skipped, especially after exertion. What she needed wasn't more movement, it was more restoration. So we created a new plan, focused not on doing more, but doing less with intention. We prioritized these 3 pillars. 1. Deep, consistent sleep. For older adults, sleep is anabolic, meaning it actively supports the building of muscle, the regulation of hormones, and the repair of tissues. During sleep, growth hormone levels rise, facilitating cellular regeneration. But as we age, sleep becomes more fragile. For Helen, we implemented a fixed bedtime and wake-up routine, including a wind-down ritual with herbal tea and soft lighting. No screens 90 minutes before bed. Instead, we introduced audiobooks and breathing exercises, magnesium glycinate and a touch of melatonin, both doctor-approved, to help restore circadian rhythm. Within 3 weeks, she was sleeping more soundly. Within 2 months, her strength improved, even though her workouts hadn't changed, because sleep had become her new personal trainer. 2. Active recovery. Rest doesn't always mean stillness. Sometimes, it means gentle movement that enhances circulation without taxing the system. I recommended Helen take up Tai Chi, not just for the meditative flow, but for its proven benefits on balance, joint mobility, and neuromuscular coordination. On days she didn't feel like training, she went in her garden, performed simple breathing stretches in the sun, or walked barefoot in the grass. It was movement without pressure. She began to understand. Rest is not laziness. It is medicine. 3. Post-workout rituals. Most people finish a workout and move on. But what you do after movement matters as much as the exercise itself. With Helen, we added hydration within 30 minutes post-exercise, with electrolytes to support muscle recovery. A protein-rich meal or snack with 20 to 30 grams of high-quality protein, Greek yogurt, eggs, or plant-based shakes. Breath work, 5 minutes of slow nasal breathing to calm the nervous system and switch from fight or flight to rest and repair. The results? Her energy came back. Her muscles felt less sore. And most importantly, she began to enjoy her movement again because it no longer left her depleted. The science supports this. A study from Stanford University found that older adults who improved their sleep and recovery routines gained nearly 20% more lean muscle mass compared to those who followed exercise protocols alone. Even more compelling, their mood, memory, and joint mobility improved alongside their strength, rewriting the narrative on aging and rest. There's a cultural myth, especially in places like America, that rest is a reward for productivity, that you must earn it, that it's only for the weak, the tired, the finished. But in reality, rest is resilience. It's the training ground of healing. And for seniors who want to move through life with energy, clarity, and confidence, it's non-negotiable. As William Park, the marathon runner, once told me after adopting his new approach, I used to chase endurance. Now I chase balance. And in that balance, I've found strength I never knew I still had. So here's what I ask you today. Are you resting, or are you simply collapsing at the end of the day? Are you honoring your need for repair as much as your drive for activity? Are you allowing the muscles you work so hard for to breathe and rebuild? Let me leave you with one final truth. How you recover determines how long you rise. Recovery isn't just a break. It's the bridge between effort and transformation. And as we continue forward, remember, your strength isn't just in the pushing, it's also in the pausing. Part 9, Connection and Purpose. The invisible strength that holds us together. A few years ago, I sat with a patient named Mr. Daniel Kim, an 81-year-old retired teacher living in Sacramento. He had recently recovered from a serious fall, a fractured pelvis that had left him housebound for nearly 3 months. When we first met after his rehabilitation, I expected him to ask about physical therapy, medications, maybe exercises. Instead, he looked at me with tired eyes and said, "Doctor, I know how to walk again, but I don't know why I should." That single sentence was heavier than all the medical charts in my hand. Because in that moment, Daniel wasn't asking me about muscle. He was asking about meaning. And that's when I realized no amount of strength matters if there's no reason to stand tall. The science of purpose. You see, in recent years, scientists have begun to study not just the body of aging, but the spirit of it. One landmark study from the University of Michigan followed 7,000 older adults over a span of 10 years. The results were profound. Those who reported having a strong sense of purpose in life were 37% less likely to die during the study period than those who didn't. Even after accounting for health conditions, age, and lifestyle, purpose remained the single most powerful predictor of longevity. But what is purpose, really? It's not about grand ambitions or world-changing goals. It's about feeling needed, feeling connected to something or someone beyond yourself. It could be tending a garden, volunteering at your local library, walking a neighbor's dog, reading to your grandchild, writing a memoir, painting a canvas that no one else may ever see. Purpose is what wakes you up. Daniel's story continued. After that first meeting, I didn't prescribe Daniel a new pill. I gave him a question to carry home. What made you feel alive before the fall? He returned 2 weeks later, his face brighter. It wasn't much, he told me, but I used to teach poetry to high schoolers after I retired. I loved it. Watching them come alive through words, it gave me energy. We looked for a nearby school. A local teacher agreed to let Daniel join a weekly Zoom call with her class. Just 30 minutes. No pressure, just presence. 3 months later, Daniel was walking a mile a day again. Not because I told him to, but because he had somewhere to go. The power of connection. Purpose often walks hand in hand with connection, to people, to community, to a shared experience. According to research from Harvard's nearly 80-year-long study of adult development, the greatest predictor of health and happiness at age 80 was not cholesterol levels or income or even physical activity. It was the quality of relationships. Those who felt close to family, friends, or community were healthier, happier, and lived longer. And yet, loneliness is now being called an epidemic among seniors. In the U.S., over 40% of adults over 65 report feeling regularly lonely. And loneliness, it turns out, isn't just an emotional ache. It raises the risk of stroke, heart disease, depression, even muscle deterioration. Why? Because the human nervous system wasn't built to survive alone. We thrive in connection. We heal in connection. What connection looks like? For some, it may be a daily phone call with an old friend. For others, it's joining a walking group or a local Tai Chi class. In my years of practice, I've seen connection bloom in the smallest of ways. Rita, 75, started a Sunday soup circle with her neighbors. Now, it's the most anticipated meal of her week. George, 78, started an Instagram account to share bird photos from his backyard. He's got followers from 4 countries now and responds to every comment. Anna, 69, who lost her husband 5 years ago, began knitting scarves for premature babies at a local hospital. "Their warmth gives me warmth," she said once with tears in her eyes. It doesn't matter what it is. What matters is that you don't disappear into silence. The body responds. Do you know what else is fascinating? When purpose and connection are present, the body follows. Oxytocin, the bonding hormone, increases. Cortisol, the stress hormone that eats away at muscle, decreases. Even mitochondria, the powerhouses in your cells, work more efficiently when you feel emotionally fulfilled. In one study, seniors who volunteered regularly reported higher energy, better sleep, and fewer doctor visits, even if their activity levels hadn't changed. Purpose isn't just a spiritual gift. It's a biological miracle. Your next step. So if you're sitting there wondering what your next health step is, I invite you not to reach first for weights or diets. Reach for a name in your contact list. Reach for a local community board. Reach for that part of yourself that still wants to be useful. Because here's the truth. A body with strength and a soul with no direction is a car with a full tank and no destination. But when you rediscover why you want to keep going, every walk feels lighter. Every stretch feels meaningful. Every sunrise feels like a new invitation. Part 10. The Superager Blueprint, bringing it all together. If you've come this far, dear reader, or rather, dear viewer, since this is a video, then you've already done something extraordinary. You've made a conscious decision to understand your body, your mind, and your life after 60 in a deeper, wiser way. That choice alone sets you apart from the average. You're no longer simply reacting to aging. You're learning to live it well. Now, let's gather all the threads we've explored and weave them into a daily life you can follow, not as a strict rulebook, but as a compassionate rhythm. A blueprint for superaging. Mornings, rise with purpose. It all begins the moment you wake up. Not just how you wake up, but why. Before reaching for your phone, pause. Feel your breath. Whisper a gentle phrase like, "Today is a gift. I will treat my body with respect and my life with purpose." Then begin with a gentle movement practice. This might be a short 5-minute walk around the garden, a slow set of chair squats or stretching, even breathing exercises like box breathing. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold again for 4. This gets your nervous system online, awakens your circulation, and starts your day not in stress, but in presence. Breakfast is your first opportunity to nourish strength. Include 25 to 30 grams of high-quality protein, a serving of fruit like blueberries or pomegranate seeds, healthy fats, a spoon of avocado, or a handful of walnuts. Optional, add supplements like magnesium or methylated B12, as discussed earlier, tailored to your needs. Midday, build and balance. After a morning of mindful nourishment and movement, your body is primed for more. This is the perfect window for resistance training or coordination-based activities. If you're just starting out, 20 to 30 minutes of progressive resistance using resistance bands, light weights, or even body weight can suffice. Once or twice a week, add coordination activities like Tai Chi, dancing, or even ping pong to stimulate your neuromuscular junctions. Post-workout, make sure your lunch supports muscle synthesis again with lean protein, chicken, tofu, eggs, fish, fiber-rich veggies, healthy carbs like sweet potatoes or quinoa. This is also the time when connection matters. Call someone, share a meal, laugh, volunteer. Social connection in the midday hours has been shown to reduce cortisol and improve mitochondrial function. Afternoon, recovery and renewal. Many seniors experience an energy dip in the afternoon. This is not a failure. It is biology calling for restoration. Instead of caffeine, try a short nap, 20 to 30 minutes max. A mindfulness practice like body skin meditation or gentle breath work. Enjoy a light herbal tea with anti-inflammatory benefits, turmeric, ginger, green tea. If you haven't moved yet today, consider a walk before dinner. Not for calorie burning, but for blood sugar balance, lymphatic circulation, and mental clarity. A simple 15-minute stroll can cut evening stress in half. Evening, anchor with intention. Dinner is not just a meal. It is an opportunity for integration. Enjoy your final 25 to 30 grams of protein. Add vegetables that support gut health, spinach, broccoli, fermented foods. Include healthy fats for hormonal support, olive oil, avocado, nuts. After dinner, limit screens. Engage in rituals that cue your body for rest. Journaling 3 things you're grateful for. Gentle stretches. Reading spiritual reflections or calming poetry. Connecting with loved ones. Then before bed, pause once more. Hand on heart. eyes soft. Say, I have honored my body today. I am still growing, still learning, still strong. Sleep is the sacred final pillar. 7 to 8 hours in a completely dark room. If needed, support your sleep with magnesium, glycine, or calming herbal teas. Avoid alcohol or sleeping pills that disturb deep sleep cycles. Your superager checklist. Let's crystallize what we've learned into a simple checklist. Each habit is a stepping stone. You don't need to master them all at once, but build your life upon them slowly and surely. Progressive resistance training 2x/week. High-quality protein 3x/day, 25-30 g each meal. Key nutrients daily: magnesium, vitamin D3 plus K2, creatine, B12. Intermittent fasting or time-restricted eating 12-12 or 16:8. Anti-inflammatory lifestyle. Omega-3s, gut health, sleep quality. Hormetic stressors, cold/heat exposure, breath work, brief intensity. Neuromuscular stimulation, coordination activities, cognitive challenges. Daily purpose, find your why. Social connection, talk, share, laugh. Mindfulness, breathe, return, notice, love. Final reflections. My dear friends, aging is not the enemy. It is the invitation to deepen, to listen, to live with greater attention and tenderness. You are not here to decline. You are here to rise, wiser, softer, stronger. I'll leave you with the story of Amelia, one of my favorite patients. At 86, she lifts light weights 3 times a week. She paints watercolor landscapes. She writes letters to her grandkids every Sunday. When asked her secret, she smiled and said, I move my body, I move my mind, I move my heart, and I don't wait for perfect days. I create them. So now I ask you gently, what kind of day will you create tomorrow? And what kind of legacy will your strength leave? Not just in your muscles, but in the lives you touch. This is not the end. This is your new beginning. Stay strong. Stay steady. Stay beautifully alive.